Ex-stepmom feels entitled to a relationship with me after 6 years of no contact, even after ruining my childhood and getting caught lying to a preacher. YouTube lurker, first-time poster, if this is wrong, please let me know. But after several years, I was advised to finally tell this story to people who are not in my small town and do not already know this absolutely entitled woman. Obligatory, this happened years ago, but it followed me for ages after. TLDR. My stepmother blamed 11-year-old me for her getting in trouble while I was having a seizure, and even after being no contact for 6 years, she still wants to talk to me while I struggle with medical issues, because her conscience is somehow killing her. I, 24F, am a child of divorce. My biological parents split when I was 4 years old. My mother started dating again when I was 7, and she met a wonderful man who I love to this day. My father, on the other hand, went through several relationships between when I was 4 to 8. Half of that time, he was in and out of my life anyway. But that is not what this story is about. This is about his last girlfriend and wife before he passed away. My stepmother, who I unaffectionately call my ex-Stepmom, SB, came into my life after meeting my dad while she was in a women's rehab group in my hometown. My father and his Christian rock band played there, very much Bible Belt Southern U.S., and that is how they connected. I always had trust issues with the women my dad brought into my life. Partly because I had an insane name that led to bullying, but mostly because his first girlfriend after leaving my mom abused me and my little sister when we were very young. Not to mention, the reason my parents divorced in the first place was that my father was constantly on drugs. So when SB showed up, I was already skeptical, especially knowing why she was in rehab. She appeared when I was 8.5. I remember because it was summer and my birthday is in January. It was my dad's custody week, and we were waiting for SB before heading to my uncle's house to go swimming. That is when my dad sprung it on us that they had been dating for 3 months without telling us. For some context, my dad screamed at my mom when she did not immediately tell him she was dating someone. So this hypocrisy did not sit well with me. I distinctly remember looking at my dad, then at SB, back at my dad, then at her again, until I pointed at her and said, "She is going to do something bad." That was the beginning of our dynamic. Fast forward to my dad marrying this woman. By then, I had officially become a test subject for her psychology degree, which, by the way, she never finished. I was 11 at the time, playing in my bedroom with my sister and cousin on Super Bowl Sunday after church. My sister and cousin were on the computer playing Movie Star Planet, which was all the rage back then. They were using the camera flash feature, and when it went off, I suddenly felt off. I started seeing red dots everywhere. I told them about it, and my cousin jokingly said, "You're about to have a seizure." And to my surprise, he was right. I do not remember much of what happened next, other than what my sister, cousin, and dad told me later. Apparently, they ran downstairs to get a drink, leaving me alone on the bed. My dad came upstairs to get me for lunch, only to find me having a full-on grand mal seizure. He did everything he could to stop me from hurting myself while calling 911. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in the ambulance with my dad reassuring me I was okay and that I should go back to sleep. When I fully woke up, I could hear "Touchdown Patriots" and my dad cheering. My first words, "Are you watching the Super Bowl without me?" The room exploded with laughter. It was one of the rare times my mom and dad were in the same room without screaming at each other. Not the last time, but that is another story. I looked around, realized I was in a hospital room, and my parents called in a doctor to check on me. That was the beginning of several appointments and tests, plus an ER trip after I had a bad reaction to the seizure medication they gave me. How my ex-stepmom messed this up for herself. Here is the part I did not know until years later, when I was 17. Apparently, while I was unconscious, instead of checking on me, SB called our pastor to come pray over me. Normally, I would not have minded, except for 2 major problems. 1. Only direct family was allowed in my room because I was a child in a medical emergency. 2. SB lied and told hospital staff that she was my biological mother. My real mom looks nothing like her, and at the time SB was 28 while I was 11. When my real mother arrived, the pastor who had been outside the room told her that it was family only. Thankfully, one of the nurses was a family friend and let my mom in, while SB got kicked out. Our pastor was furious. He yelled at her for lying about my mother not being involved in our lives. In reality, my mom was very involved. In fact, I was supposed to go to her house that very evening after the Super Bowl. Why I cut her off, and why she will not leave me alone. After my dad passed away when I was 17, I had no reason to see her anymore. I went no contact, but she has tried reaching out multiple times, including spamming my Facebook while I was in college and struggling with more medical issues related to my seizure disorder. She even called me an abomination when she found out I came out as demigirl, semi-non-binary, leaning feminine. I never told her, I only told close friends. But apparently, one of my half-brothers who still talks to her spilled the news. To make things worse, after I was diagnosed with epilepsy, autism, and a brain vein malformation, I dropped out of college to focus on my medical treatments. When I posted about it to warn my family in case they had similar conditions, SB had the audacity to comment, "You should come see me instead." I nearly screamed. Thankfully, my boyfriend calmed me down before I did something stupid. He even commented, warning anyone in my family to keep SB away from my life. So far, only my uncle and cousins still keep in touch from my dad's side, and I am fine with that. I am just praying she finally stops interfering in my life for good. Part 1. My fiancé and I have been together for 8 years and engaged for 3. I was doing my PhD program while juggling wedding planning. My fiancé took on a lot of that work, but it was perfect because our dream venue was booked until after my graduation. So we booked our dream venue 3 years in advance. It is a beautiful venue, and the only available slot was in September of this year. My sister got engaged a few months ago to her fiancé. They were planning on having a spring wedding next year. They had no venue lined up but had a few vendors booked and a set date. Yesterday, our parents invited us and our significant others to a family BBQ where my sister announced to our extended family that she is expecting. Everyone was happy for her and my BIL, who is a great guy. My nan asked my sister if the wedding was still on the set date or if they were going to wait because of the baby. She said no, that she hoped to move it to September. No big deal. We do not have many out-of-town guests, so they could attend both weddings with no problem. Nan was happy and asked my sister if she needed help planning a short-notice wedding. My sister then turned to me and said, "That's what I wanted to talk to you about. I was really hoping we could kind of take your venue. I really cannot stress myself too much with planning a wedding while going to maternity classes, and I think it is so beautiful. It would really mean a lot to me." It went silent. Everyone was looking at me, expecting me to say, "Yes, of course, anything for my little sister." My BIL looked very uncomfortable and told her that they had talked about this, and that it was not okay to put me on the spot. But my sister just said, "Don't be like that. My sister wants to do what's best for me, so it's no big deal, right?" I just said, "Well, it kind of is." I don't know. I have my heart really set on the venue. Cue the crying. She stormed off. Nan told me that I was being selfish because my sister needed the venue more than I did. I tried to defend myself, and my mother said, "You waited 3 years. Would it have killed you to wait a few more months? When has your sister ever asked you for something?" A few comments later, my fiancé got really mad and we left. My sister called me crying and said it was unfair that I always get what I want and that I could have done this one thing for her. Dad said, "It's just a venue. What matters is the person you're marrying." He is kind of right. But we have been planning for so long. My fiancé is furious with my family and does not even want my sister to come. Now my family is threatening not to come because they think I am being selfish and that my sister needs it more since pregnancy is stressful. Part 2. My BL called me and apologized for the inconvenience. He told me he had already discussed it with my sister and she had promised him she would not ask. He is properly mad at her now and warned me that my sister is blaming me for potentially ruining her marriage. My father has sent me about 5 texts along the lines of, "I hope you're happy. Your sister hasn't stopped crying since yesterday." And so on and so on. My fiancé and I have decided to boot my sister from the bridal party and replace her with my aunt, who is the only family member that took my side. We have not yet decided whether we will invite my family at all. Furthermore, my mom took it upon herself to stir more drama. She called my fiance's parents and told them that it would be best if my sister got the venue because she is pregnant and preeclampsia runs in the family. Whatever that means. My future father-in-law was not having it. He told them to back off and ripped my mom a new one for expecting something so ridiculous, saying they were going to lose me if they kept playing favorites. Now my mom is crying too, saying that my father-in-law is a jerk. This is just getting so ridiculous, it feels like something straight out of a bad soap opera. My in-laws are driving over right now with supper and wine, and basically told me not to worry. No matter what happens, they will be my safety net. I cried out of happiness. Part 3. So it has not been that long, but this post blew up. I expected only a few responses, but the support was overwhelming. What boggled my mind is that this went viral and even reached mainstream media. My sister saw the story while browsing on her Reddit account. She lost her mind. She accused me of painting her as crazy and misinterpreting facts. She found out because of media coverage and Reddit. She said I was being unfair, that she is family, and she only asked nicely because she loves me. She also claimed that the opinions of internet strangers do not matter, because family is more important, and I should focus on making my family happy. The only text I sent back was, "I am sorry that you perceived it that way. I did not distort what happened in any way. As you might notice, I did not describe your tone or exaggerate anything. Perhaps you remember that night differently than I do, but I digress. I am sick and tired of bending to your will. My whole life I have been your servant and your doormat. Remember all the birthdays I had to share with you because you would throw a tantrum about not getting presents? Or when you cried so that I would fill out job applications for you? But the thing that has hurt me the most was when you ruined my graduation. I am done. I admit that I also spoiled you, but I will not anymore. If you want to get married before your baby is born, look at Hotel X, which offers last-minute weddings. I have spent too much time planning my wedding to just hand it over to you. If you want to ruin our relationship over this, then go ahead. I will sleep soundly knowing it was not my fault." She only sent me, "Wow, you must love me so much," and blocked me. Part 4. We called my planner, and she was horrified. She never talked to my mom after the initial venue booking. She assured me that even if my family tried to change the reservation, I had to be present to authorize any changes. So we informed all our vendors about the situation, and they offered to hire security for the wedding day at a reduced price. At least now I have some peace of mind. I do not care if you have cancer. My child deserves your seat. This encounter happened about 7 months ago. I do not want to insult your intelligence because you most likely already know what EM and me stand for. But I should clarify that EK in this story stands for embarrassed kid, and OG stands for old gentleman, a 60-something-year-old guy. The kid was very polite and apologetic, so this story is not about him. Also, I am translating this into English, so bear with me. A little backstory. About a year ago, I was diagnosed with cancer of the nasal cavity, stage 2. The tumor was quite large, but thankfully had not spread. Edit. Some people pointed out I worded this incorrectly. By benign, I meant that the tumor was still contained and had not spread to other tissue. I apologize for my mistake. To get it removed, I first had to undergo aggressive chemotherapy to shrink it. Because of the chemo, I lost most of my hair, including my eyebrows and eyelashes. At some point, I had to shave my head completely, but I wore a wig because I did not want to be mistaken for a skinhead. I am 6 feet 4 inches and muscular, so I figured people might assume things. One day, after a long chemo session, I took the bus home. There's only one bus that goes from the hospital to where I live, so I got on, only to see it was completely packed. I felt horrible from the chemo, so I asked a middle-aged guy if I could take his seat. He was very understanding and gave me his spot without hesitation. If you're reading this, thanks, man. 2 stops later, enter EM. A large woman with a "I demand to speak to the manager" haircut walked in with her 12-year-old son. It took her about 5 seconds to see the packed bus, start scanning for a seat, spot me, and then march straight toward me. Or, in her case, struggle to fit in the aisle while shoving others aside. The moment I saw her, I knew I was in trouble. She stood next to me and started talking. The conversation. M. Hey, could you let my kid sit down? Me. You mean me? M. Who else? Me. Oh, I'm sorry, but I just got out of the hospital and... M. Cutting me off. So are we. Not true, the stop was several kilometers away from the hospital. My boy just broke his leg, and we're coming straight from the ER. Her kid was standing perfectly fine next to her with no crutches, no cast, and no support. He looked absolutely mortified by his mom's behavior. Me. He's standing right next to you. Completely fine. M. Look here, boy. I was 21 years old. My child deserves to sit down. Me. Look, ma'am, I'm sorry, but I just had a chemo session, and I really need to sit and rest. I then moved my wig slightly to reveal my bald head, and that's when she lost it. EM screaming, "Stop making excuses and get off the freaking seat, you bald-skinned loser!" At this point, I was stunned. I had no words. Her kid was begging her to stop, the entire bus was staring, and she was straight up yelling in my face. Then she grabbed me and tried to yank me out of my seat. I held on tightly and thankfully did not fall. And then OG, my savior, stepped in. Enter OG, the hero of the story. OG, will you shut up, you rude woman? M, who do you think you're talking to? OG, calm but ice cold. Stop harassing other passengers or I will be forced to step in. Also, anyone with a brain can see that this young man is sick. M, no, he's just a freaking skinhead. Og, he has no eyebrows, you twit. That seemed to really offend him. She spun around and punched OG right in the face. The sweet taste of instant karma. The whole bus went silent. Her kid looked like he wanted to disappear. And then OG said something that instantly changed the game. OG, okay, that does it. Harassing passengers, physical assault, and now assaulting an officer. You are in deep trouble, lady. Then he pulled out a badge. OG was a police officer. EM's face turned white. OG pulled out his phone, called someone, and told EM she was under arrest. The bus had just stopped, so EM tried to run, but other passengers blocked her. Thanks to that, she also got charged with resisting arrest. The aftermath. 3 stops later, a police car was waiting for EM and EK. EK apologized to me for his mom's behavior. I felt genuinely bad for the kid. He was not a bad person, but his mother was an absolute nightmare. OG then asked if I wanted to press charges, to which I gladly said yes. Thankfully, he let me handle everything over the phone so I did not have to go to the station for questioning. In the end, EM got some jail time, I think a few months, and community service. I, in return, got a great story to tell and the sweet, sweet taste of instant karma. Final update. Right now, I am riding the same bus home after a hospital checkup, which reminded me of this story. A friend sitting next to me encouraged me to post it here. He, just like me, still cannot believe people like this actually exist. Also, the best news, my surgery went well. I was declared cancer-free in November and my hair is finally growing back. I do not even need to wear a wig anymore. You guys made my day, and I am sorry I cannot respond to all the comments. I truly appreciate all of you. Thank you so much.